this episode of Viral Rewind, we're going to look at the Obora DOS virus. Now, this is a TSR-style virus, so it will terminate and stay resident in memory when we first launch it here, and it will infect any executable.exe files that are in the present directory after a certain number of iterations. Now, it does not infect .com or any other files. It specifically will only go after executable.exe ones. But it does have an interesting method that kind of slows its infection down, and maybe that's to help it avoid detection by the user or maybe even some antivirus programs. But what Obora does is, after it's loaded in memory, every 3 times that you run a program, whether you could run the same program 3 times or you could run 3 different programs, it will then infect one executable in the current directory in alphabetical order. So, for instance, let me bring up the thing here. And again, it only infects executables, so the first one it will technically go after is append, and then attrib, backup, and check disk, and all the way down to xcopy at the very end. So we've already run Obora once, so it's loaded into memory, but now we need to run some applications to get it to infect. So let's run the xcopy. Let's run xcopy again, and then one more time. And you can't really hear it on this computer, but the hard drive indicator came on a little while after xcopy there was run a 3rd time, because, as I said, every 3rd instance it will infect an executable file. So in this case, it probably has infected append or attrib. So let's try running some other ones. Let's try what happens when we do some .com files. So we ran sys 3 times, and even though that's a .com file, it still triggers Obora's infection routine. Because after the 3rd time there, I saw the hard drive indicator come on a little bit, and so it's infected another executable file in the directory. Again, .exes only, it does not do .coms. So how about format 3 times? So we saw it do it there. How about tree? And yeah, it did some more infections there. Now, it does happen to break some programs when it infects. Oops, well, that's not going to work. So let's try looking at append or attrib and see if they work. And they don't. Attrib, when you normally run it, it puts all the files on the screen there and displays the attributes that are assigned to them. In this case, it doesn't even work at all. However, it is still running Obora's infection in the background, because I ran it 3 times, and even though the program is broken by Obora, its infectious code is still present there, and it's still causing it to infect every time we run it after 3 times. So that's pretty much how the infection of Obora works. I'm not going to try to go through and infect all the files in the directory there, because that'll of course take quite a bit of time. So what we're going to do is talk about the 2 various payloads that Obora has. The first one is a graphics one, and that happens on any Sunday of the month. So it happens to be Sunday right now, but it only happens at specific times of the day. Right now it's a little bit after 7 o'clock here at night. I do know the payload happens after 11 p.m. at night. Puggy flying in my face here. So we're going to go ahead and restart the computer and then reload Obora so we can see this effect. Let's go back to our temp directory. And as I said, the first payload happens on any Sunday, and it does happen at various times of the day. As I say, I do know that after 11 p.m. it happens. So let's just go ahead and run Obora once to load it into memory, and then watch what happens to all the text on the screen here after a few seconds. Notice how they all disappeared. But I can of course bring it back with clear screen, but after a couple more seconds that disappears as well. And what's happening is that it has hooked into both the timer interrupt, and I also believe probably BIOS video or something like that. And what it's doing is about every 10 seconds it blanks the screen. And it doesn't matter if you're at the DOS prompt or if you're in a full screen application like Edit. You can edit here. And if you're even in a program like this, it will still blank the screen out. See, it just blanked that out. I can bring it back. But again, every 10 seconds it sends a screen blanking instruction to the BIOS graphics there. And so it just keeps doing this whole screen blanking business. And of course, you can see we can get some stuff back. But of course, this would get pretty annoying to have your computer screen keep blanking on you like this and having to either clear it in DOS with the clear screen command or do something in a full screen app to get the window back. So as you're using your computer, this of course would get very annoying, but of course DOS is still working in the background. You just can't see what you're doing because it keeps blanking the screen. So that's what the first payload is. Every Sunday of a month after 11 p.m. or again certain times of the day, it'll do this screen blanking routine every 10 seconds that will pretty much drive you crazy, even though you can get around it. So the second payload has to deal with both kind of a little graphical payload and also some CMOS modifications, which again is why I brought up the floppy drives. So let me go ahead and change the date to the 22nd. And let's go back to the temp directory, and we already know that attrib carries Obora, so let's just go ahead and run attrib. Or how about append? Get one of them that can trigger it here. There you go, append did it. So we get this flag here, and I'll post out what that is the country of, and then flashing below that it says, "My name is Trouble. Hello from KETY, created by Kevin." And FPROD actually calls this virus Kevin, variant 1558, so whether Kevin is actually the intended name of the virus or not, but it's known by others as Obora. The other thing you might have noticed is the changing of the text font color of DOS here. It's now this interesting cyan-like color. Actually looks kind of quite nice compared to the usual dull grayish color that DOS is normally displaying its font colors as. So, but it only runs that one time. You know, we can run Obora or append over and over, and it's not going to display that payload again. It only happens one time. But as I told you, it does do something to the CMOS with the floppy drives. Let's go ahead and restart the computer and see if you can figure it out. You might have noticed there, the floppy drives did not seek at all. And we'll look at the BIOS setup screen to see what it has done, but essentially what Obora did there is it erased the floppy information out of the CMOS memory, and it's very specific. It only does the floppy settings. It does not change anything else in the CMOS memory. And there is another virus that does this called Lucy, which is another one I want to look at that has a payload that behaves just like this, with taking out the floppies from the CMOS memory. So let's go ahead and restart and get into the BIOS settings so we can see that change. And now we're into the AMI BIOS, and you can see both floppy A type and floppy B type show disabled on there. But everything else is present. You can just go ahead and restore these. But as I say, that's all it does. It just erases the floppy information out of the CMOS. It does not touch anything else, whether it be your drives or peripheral configuration, or basically just trying to wipe the CMOS out. Again, it's just very specific of erasing the floppy drive information out of the CMOS. And now you can hear that our floppies are back, so the information is back working. So it's a pretty simple fix, but again, the 22nd of any month, it'll display that graphical payload, and it'll wipe the floppy drive information out of the CMOS configuration, and you'll have to go back and restore it. Of course, you'll still have to deal with the Obora infection on the computer and any infected files on there, and of course, potentially broken programs that you'll have to fix. But aside from that, that's pretty much how the Obora DOS virus works.